Welcome, Kelly and Company. We're back on whatever you want to call it. Air? Well, if you're listening on AMI audio, that's apropos. But if you're listening to us via the podcast, it's whenever you want. So it's your air. On YouTube, you're watching. Yeah, you're watching. On today's show, as the class of 2025 prepares to enter the workforce, new research from Robert Half highlights the top challenges that early career professionals may face, along with practical steps to overcome them. We'll get into on the show. We chat about it with Michael French, our buddy over at Robert Half Canada. Gee, I actually can't remember being the class of funny, I can't remember. Ha, must not have been too memorable because it can't be the age.
This is Kelly and Company.
Kelly McDonald here. I remembered that with Nisreen Abdul-Majid joining me here on the program as we get set today for another edition of the show. Welcome to our Wednesday edition. You know, Nisreen, today it's kind of interesting. It's one of those days where you get so used to having everything laid out for you as a show. But we've actually had a last moment guest added to the lineup, which is that scramble of, oh, I can do it. I can be limber. And that's some of the behind the scenes stuff that, you just get used to knowing you got to put a show on every day. And we really got to say thanks to Colleen McCourt, always helping us out along the way. It kind of gives you a bit of anxiety, doesn't it, a little bit before the show?
It's a rush. It's the adrenaline that builds inside you. Honestly, I miss that. I miss that because that's what I got from doing live shows. And when I was in the control room, it's that adrenaline that, okay, this is what's happening. But as soon as I felt it this morning, I was like, oh, damn, this is bringing back so much memories. Here we are. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's
because
nice.
we treat this like it's live, but we record a little bit ahead of time, just so you know. And then, of course, that allows it to be up on YouTube when we need it to be, and available as the podcast and for its AMI audio runnings for each episode. But don't fool yourself. There's still that, we got to fill a show. So we're looking for items to talk about, which we did. And okay, we're ready to go with a little bit of conversation. But we know you out there, just like us, always love to hear guest voices, guest conversations. So we're able to do that. As a matter of fact, to kick the show off today, we had a pre-record that we did last week with Leanne Baarda that we'll get to in just a moment. But first, I want to remind you that you can email us at kellyco@ami.ca. You can also give us a call, 1-866-509-4545.
The weather is getting better. Everyone wants to spend more time outdoors and enjoy the short, warm weather season. With so many options from picnics to backyard barbecues and everything in between, it's hard to know where to start. Today, we will talk about considerations for all your summer fun. I love this conversation, Leanne. Let's get right into it with the list you have for us.
So with all the summer opportunities that we have in this city, and, we want to maximize whatever we can do to enjoy everything the summer has to offer while we still can. So especially with our children and youth, we want to get them out there. And so having them visiting food trucks, doing food tours in different city neighborhoods. Like, for example, like when I was doing one of the summer programs, we used to always go to Kensington, and we'd have the kids choose a couple of stores or restaurants they wanted to try, and it was so much fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, that really is. And it's kind of one of those more recent things that have really blown up, so they're around to go find certain things and locations with whether it's food trucks, whether it's pop-up. Well, of course, we were talking recently on the show about the farmers markets, all these neat little things that just appear.
Exactly. And, the more we have exposure to these things, we can help the kids develop skills to work on money identification, self-advocacy, social skills, eating skills, using their assistive technology so they can, read menus and interact with signs and even, tell their money apart. And of course, the orientation mobility skills to get there, and also obviously the independent living skills. I can't leave that one out.
No. Is there anything that kind of you found is either the biggest concern or the biggest turnoff if you're going, say, to food trucks? You mentioned reading menus. Well, a lot of time for us, okay, I gotta get my food, maybe find a place to stand or sit. But even just reading a menu, where do I find it? The glisten from the sun off of it if it's up on the truck. What are some of the things you've encountered there, and any solutions, suggestions?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest thing is when they have like the sandwich boards with chalk writing. The OCR readers don't always pick it up. And so in that case, it's probably best just to go to the truck itself and say, listen, I'm interested in something with chicken, or, I'm really feeling a poutine today. Is this something you have, and how much is it?
Okay. The what do you have question. What do you have here?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, it's just a little bit of self-advocacy. And, once they understand that you have sight loss, they're usually going to be pretty good about it. And hopefully if they want your money, they'll accommodate.
Because you can't really find a lot of that stuff online unless it's a big enough food truck like business, right? So, but yeah, that's interesting, because I wondered that. And I mean, yes, we have the IRAs, the Be My Eyes. Hey, man, can you help me find somewhere to sit around here? Whether it's on a wall, whether it's on a curb, whatever, where it's safe. Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. So, just maybe even scouting out the area before you get there, before when those food trucks are going to show up, maybe find, a nice piece of real estate to sit. Maybe there's a bench nearby, maybe a lovely raised curb that's away from the street, so you don't have to worry about getting your legs run over, a little bit of recon before you head out. Okay.
The other thing we have that's really great about the GTA is our ravine system. There are so many beautiful parks and ravines that have accessible trails, a lot of sensory aspects that are built into them, like different kinds of trees, like lilacs and blossoms, and they have some of them have little gardens. Like there's one that I used to go to all the time at Lawrence and Yonge called Alexander Muir. And they have a beautiful garden there. It looks kind of like where people would take their wedding photos. And they do such a great job of curating different plants and just adding to the sensory element of it.
And that's the connected parks, right? Really, you can almost go from one to the other.
Yeah.
Leanne, do you feel these days that they actually are creating so many more sensory events? Not, I think a lot of us in the blindness community, we start thinking, okay, this is great, I have stuff here for me. Well, it's not really put in there for us necessarily anymore. It's for everyone, because everyone likes to smell those lilacs, wants to hear the birds.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I think thinking about universal design while they're making these places, it just enhances the experience for everyone, not just for our community.
Great.
I love that. And I'm just curious, how do we find those sensory walks, those sensory trails?
Usually through City of Parks and Rec, they might have some of them listed, but I don't have any specific resources on that. It's just usually from personal experience, where I've gone and tried out different trails. Like there's the Moccasin Trail, which has the little rainbow tunnel that you can go through. And they have the Salmon Run in the fall. There's Alexander Muir. There's the Sunnybrook Park, which goes right behind the CNIB building. There's, lots of really interesting stuff.
Sometimes it's just a scavenger hunt, you got to find your way. I love that.
Yeah.
But there are so many options, so that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll call them happy accidents when we discover them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The other thing you can kind of do that's really interesting is bird watching. So this one has become like a new thing. And I remember doing a workshop with our youth on accessible bird watching. And they talked about, listening for the different bird calls, how to identify them, where you might find different kinds of birds, especially depending on the season. That is something that I could also, add to your maybe sensory scavenger hunt.
Because there's a lot of online discussions now about it. Have you come across any apps that help you identify whether you play sound of a bird or just to hear them that are available, that people can say, I wonder what that bird is. I wonder, I know I should know what that is. Anything that we've discovered can identify?
I like the Cornell ornithology one. They seem to be pretty good, and they have a little webcam, and you can pull it up and you can see different birds across the world, and it's really neat to see maybe like some kestrels or maybe some birds in Costa Rica that you would never encounter, but you can then turn on these feeds and you can listen to this bird calls and just get a sense of what it's like out there.
That is neat. Are they streamed like live, those, or is it footage?
I think some of them are live streamed. Yeah.
Cool. That's so great. That really is.
Yeah. It's really, a really fun option, especially, for some birds you may never encounter in real life. So
yeah. Wow. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Other things you can do if you're going out, maybe create an opportunity to pick up leaves or shells, making sure that you're picking up things that you're allowed to pick up, and that you're avoiding things like poison ivy or poison oak. So, maybe
we had to do that as kids, but I don't know how the heck I avoided it. I'd be out in the woods a lot, and that was our biggest fear. I think all the kids I played with who could see were so terrified of it. We just made sure there was somebody. Don't touch that. That's poison oak. Get away.
Been there, done that. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
The other day I was experimenting with Gemini, and there was a plant at a client's house, and I didn't know what it was, and I asked Gemini what it was, and it was able to tell me.
Wow.
It was pretty cool.
That's great. That is really
great.
great.
Yeah. So AI is going to be, is already a game changer, but I can only imagine in a few years where it's going to be.
And I don't know that Be My Eyes can't do that now. If you took a picture of something, I don't know if it wouldn't identify it. A yellow rose. Oh my goodness! I think we'd be surprised because it has all that in its repository of information.
Exactly. So I thought it was really cool that I pulled a picture into Gemini and it was immediately able to tell me what kind of plant it was based on the leaves, and I was quite impressed.
Okay.
So really interesting things just to kind of make the walk even more exciting and interesting.
And active too, like you said, picking things up, collecting something, even if, and of course you can sit and just listen. Okay.
Yeah. One of the cool things you can do is take a piece of paper and bring some crayons with you. And let's say different kinds of trees, if you can do a rubbing, and those marks will be raised after you take it off the tree.
Oh, that'd be a cool thing to feel.
That's such a fun activity with your kids too.
Yeah, I've done it with drawings with sandpaper. You can put a piece of paper on sandpaper, and then you can draw on it as well. So you can maybe take that out with you, and on a little clipboard, and then have the kids kind of imagine how something would look, or maybe feel the shape of a leaf and maybe try to do it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Just different little fun activities you can do out there. Of course, keeping an accessible nature journal. So, maybe on this walk in this neighborhood, we saw this bird and we saw these plants and maybe these certain species of flowers that were native to this area. And then they can kind of have a journal at the end of the summer and say, look, these are all the really cool things that I saw this year.
Yeah, that's a really great summer event. It really, and you surprise yourself all the time, and you go back because you'll forget what you saw, what you took down until you go back and say, oh my gosh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So that's the nature part of things. Another really cool thing now is, I don't know if you guys have been seeing this, but there's a lot of these huge backyard games that are coming out, like life-size Jenga, life-size Connect 4, the ring toss games, the beanbag games. There's a lot out there. And I think even the most recent one I saw was a life-size Tetris.
I've heard of that one. I've heard of some people talking about that. But because ring toss and beanbag we've had but now it's nice to get them bigger so more people can have fun.
Exactly. And then I saw that at Braille Superstore, they have these little sound source devices. So if you want, more help to aim, you can put one of the sound sources near the hole so that people are better able to score. And get better scores.
That would be good even with stuff like lawn bowling and stuff like that, where it's unintrusive. It's not going to change the game of anybody's bowl or whatever. Really cool. No. Like put it next to the jack. Okay.
Exactly. And the same thing, like picking up the basketballs, the volleyballs, and the things with the bells inside or the beepers. I've seen somebody attach one of those sound sources to a basketball net so that people knew where to aim. So just a different way of doing things, but still making it fun and accessible for everyone so everyone can be on an equal playing field.
Fantastic. Do you want to get into picnics a little bit as something fun so we don't run out of time, because we know all of us on this show always got to talk food, right?
Yeah. Well, picnics are a lot of fun, and now, they have so many cool options. I just saw last night that Costco is selling this thing called a snackle box. Have you guys heard of that?
A snackle box. Wow.
What's that?
So
It's kind of like,
essentially,
the fisherman's tackle box.
Yeah, except it has larger compartments, and it's like a charcuterie board that you can, but it has different compartments, so you can put your fruit, your vegetables, your crackers, and they don't touch. And then
love Costco.
You need that, Nazreen, for the pickles. I know all the fans on this show love pickles, right? And they wouldn't want them to touch anything else.
Exactly. So everything's in its own little compartment, and then there's a lid that snaps shut, so it's super portable. That I think could be a really fun option.
Did you notice if it had somewhere for ice? Like, can you actually put, just to keep it a bit cool? I wonder. I guess you could if you had like an ice pack or something just to get it out there.
Yeah, you could probably get like larger, more pliable ice packs that you could probably put elastics around so they would stay kind of in place.
Okay, great. What should we think about if we're going to do this and a bunch of us want to get together?
Yeah, so we want to think about a location, the ease of access, the seating, the types of foods you're going to serve, and making sure that you have all the tools at your disposal. So, like, do you need a cheese knife? Do you need a spreader? Do you need spoons? All the things that disposable plates and cups and disposable wine glasses. So you want to make sure you have everything at hand so that when you get there, there's no surprises. Especially, you have that beautiful bottle of wine and then you can't open it.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly.
Wow, that looks pretty, but I can't have it. So, and then making sure that everybody in your party is able to access it. So is there rough terrain? Is there an accessible, smooth path? Are there picnic tables that someone who may be with you in a wheelchair that can pull up to easily? So just extra things to throw in for consideration.
It's also the bathroom situation. Like for our family, we always kind of drive around to see what's the best location near the bathroom before we park. And I feel like that's the priority when it comes to us. So
absolutely.
And that's hard. When it comes to picnics, it's really hard to find like a clean, good location that's near the bathroom.
Especially festivals, right? Especially since you're moving around at them.
Yeah, and clean being the operative word. You never know what you're going to get.
You can do, I guess.
Well, and especially with so many people at different things, or unfortunately, different people using them who really depend on them, but may not necessarily take care of them as much as we'd love them to.
Exactly. So maybe add Lysol wipes to your repertoire and baby wipes, just so you're sure that you're covered.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
In the heat of the days, I guess our drinks need to count here, because that's particularly careful with that, especially making sure you have water, but of course the drinks you like to have.
Exactly. And make sure you know what the open carry laws are, and what you're allowed to drink where, just to make sure you don't want to get into any sort of trouble. So a little research before saves a lot of effort in the end.
What's your favorite food at a picnic, Leanne? Like, what are you comfortable? I know some people, they always used to talk about taking fried chicken or cold chicken. It's nice and everything like that. And it's great if you have that cooler bag, can do all that, or the cooler and enough space. But is there a particular food that you find most picnicky?
I like deviled eggs, and I also like egg salad sandwiches. I don't know what it is, but whenever I'm out, it just seems like a refreshing option. I don't necessarily, I kind of worry a little bit about the deli meats when we're out there. So not that the eggs are not perishable, but I feel like it's a little less of a gamble.
Niz? Favorite
don't even
food?
get me started about us. Okay.
That many?
For us, it's mainly barbecue. I love barbecue. At picnics. And obviously you have to search up if you're allowed to barbecue at certain parks. But
Absolutely.
that's my favorite. But it's so funny how my family goes picnicking. Is that a
Mhm.
word? Picnicking? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Um,
Just
Go
made
for
it
it.
up. Yeah,
I was
it
like,
is here.
yeah.
It is
Anyways,
here.
so it's so funny because all you see is like a huge family with lots of
Mhm.
wagons carrying pots and
Yep.
and and big
I can
rice
picture it.
pots and Tupperwares. Like
They
you
bring
can
their
picture it
kitchen.
because it's so funny. The amount of times that we were stared at while we were going to Toronto Island with big wagons
Oh.
just carrying like a big watermelon with the big platters and stuff like that.
Mm.
It's so embarrassing, but that's just us.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
my
Yeah.
but
family wasn't as big as yours, but my parents did the same kind of thing. The watermelon had to go. My dad would often make a mess
Mm.
of pork hocks that we'd take down there, and my mother hated that because of pork heat doesn't go
Mm.
well, so it had to be,
Right.
and he'd want a barbecue down. Oh yeah, same thing. I remember that. It was a big to do, but I think for me, I'm happy like you, Leanne. Deviled eggs. I would love a nice roast beef sandwiches.
Mhm, mhm.
Cold. Oh my God, that to
yeah.
me makes it all. And the
Yeah.
fruit, the watermelon,
The fruit.
See,
100%.
Yep.
why can't we be a normal family and just have sandwiches at picnics instead of carrying big lugs of stuff
What are you
everywhere? But
talking about? As
It would
soon
be
as we're
boring
off,
for you.
well, yeah, I was just gonna say this. As soon as we're off air, you're gonna be saying, "Hey, Dad, by the way, the next picnic, let's do this,"
let's
and
do
it'll
it.
still require the barbecue
I love
and
it.
100 pots and everything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
complain,
I don't know
but
if
I
you
love
guys
it. Yes.
have you been to Earl Bales Park?
I don't know if
No,
I
That's
have.
at like Bathurst
I don't
and
think.
Shepherd area.
Yes,
That
yes, I think
park
I have a long
is
time
packed.
ago.
As soon as the weather gets nice, so until later, it is full of people and picnics exactly like you described, Nazreen. There's full on barbecues, and I've seen people like the full systems, like those buffet things with the fire underneath, and they have like a whole
Yeah.
system. So you're not alone in it. So anytime you go to Earl Bales, you will experience that.
It's amazing if you
Great.
think what
I'll
parks would
find another
actually
family
have
like us.
if nobody would mess with it. Well, that's the smart thing. Move from family to family and just assimilate and just
Yeah.
help yourself with your paper plates. Just bring multiple paper plates and work your way around the
Mhm.
park.
Absolutely.
Hey, do we know you? Yeah, I'm on the right time family, and I just thought, well, the what side? Oh, these look
Oh yeah,
good.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks,
This is
Leanne.
great stuff, Leanne. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much, Leanne Baarda, our independent living skills specialist, for the tips and suggestions. Great stuff.
Well, Nisreen, I hope the conversation got you in prime form for the summer, for the family picnics, for a road trip, right? Like there's nothing, well, I mean, you go down into the States sometimes via car. I still just love the fact that the other day we were talking about those trips to Detroit like my family would do down to
Yeah.
Windsor in the summertime because it's just such a good feel. But in the Toronto area, I know people out in BC, they've been talking about the ferries and people utilizing them. They have to for transit, as opposed to people who just kind of jump on the ferry in Toronto and go across the island. People who live on the island out there obviously need them. But for you, what is the one thing, if you weren't going far from Toronto, in the GTA staying for the summer you went, are you a beaches person or island person?
Oh, I'd say both. I'm more of, yeah, I anywhere near the water, I love. Don't put me in the woods. I'm not I'm not a woods person.
Are you
Okay.
a swim fan though? I mean, when we had Danielle McLaughlin
I-
on here, this was her favorite time of the year. She just loved to
Yeah.
swim, just crazy about it. You're a swimmer?
I love swimming. I love swimming, yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
But
I liked.
but
Hmm?
I cannot do lakes. I'm traumatized by swimming in lakes. When I was younger, I took goggles with me in a lake and I did not want to jump in there ever again.
What did you
Note
see?
to self, it was just so dirty. It was so like dark and it was nasty. Like I did not I don't know what I thought I don't know what I expected from looking underwater in a lake. I feel like in
Yeah.
an ocean obviously it's different. But
Well,
in
how
a
big of a
lake,
lake? Like are you talking like one of the Great Lakes or a inland? Well, I guess the Great Lakes are still inland lakes, but I mean, are you talking something in a small area or on an island or something like that?
it was on a smaller in a smaller area, but
Yeah,
it was
okay.
a big lake. Yeah.
Okay.
but just it was just very dirty, and there was a lot of bugs inside, and I jumped out of the water. Jumped. And I was like, never again. Don't put me in there ever again. Whenever we go camping now, I just watch them jump in the lake. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm safe.
So my lake stuff, really, when I was a kid, we'd go out to Ipperwash or Grand Bend out here off of Lake Huron. I loved it. It was all sand. When I was in Toronto, I joined the blind sailing group and would go out on Lake Ontario, which was just like a playground. There's just so much going on out there. Dragon boating, boating of all kinds, and people doing one thing or another out on their sea-doos. Just, it was incredible when you looked around and said, oh my God, there's stuff everywhere here. It's just being done all on water. And now my favorite thing to get some time on the water is kayaking. Not as much of a swimmer these days. And I'm one of those people who gets all creeped out when I start thinking about, oh, what's that touching me? Oh, what's my foot stepping down on? Oh, what moved by me? I felt water move. So I'm a bit of a baby when it comes to that personally. So, but I can tell you on the sailboats, I used to love dangling my feet in the water off the back and just going for that ride. Just sitting back. To me, that the memorable thing would be going when there's a ball game on and out on the sailboat. Oh yeah, that's the way. Anyway,
I just love being in a canoe or a kayak, but at the same time, I feel like any tip, anything like that, I'm the same way. I'm such a baby when it comes to that.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to where I go kayaking. I up at Fanshawe Lake here in London. No, I really wouldn't want the boat to overturn and have to crawl through all that algae when it's those blooms are big in the midst of the summertime. Yeah. We're looking for members of the disability community to join our AMI research panel. Our research panel guides us with every decision we make at AMI, including programming, media consumption, and accessibility. Participants are compensated for all long-form studies that they get involved in, and that's so appreciated. For more information and how to join, go to ami.ca/panel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, if you would, at Kelly & Co. AMI. Always love to communicate with you. Always love to hear from you. And Nazreen enjoys those conversations, and anything you have that we can add to the show, always love to have you around for that, folks. As the class of 2025 prepares to enter the workforce, new research from Robert Half highlights the top challenges that some of these early career professionals are going to encounter. So we're going today with Michael French, as he joins us as usual on the show to have these monthly talks about it. We're going to talk about some of those challenges and some of the practical steps to overcome them, and the benefits to the organizations out there that want to step out and hire these folks. Michael, appreciate you being back with us. Let's jump right in. What are some of these new challenges for these guys, young graduates getting into the workforce, and Michael, quite timely?
Well, I think it's very timely, Kelly. Thanks for having me on. Hello, Nazreen. So we surveyed nearly 1,000, I call them early career starters. These could be people who started their career and graduated a couple years ago or this year, and asked them, what are you experiencing, or what did you experience? And surprisingly, a couple of things came up that I wasn't expecting, but then some usual things popped up again. So one thing that's become very popular in the last number of years, they found there was limited mentorship opportunities. That came through with almost half the crowd. And you got to think, we're coming out of 4 years of COVID, now we're back to normal. So mentorship opportunities, they haven't been around as much, but everybody wants one. And the other one that was so high, and this really bothers me because I don't know, companies need to focus on this, is the onboarding experience. So many organizations don't have a well planned out, well thought out, day one, month one onboarding experience. And they don't put themselves in the candidate or the new starter's perspective and seat. And the other thing that came out, and this came through at about 1/3, was just sort of the lack of internship. You know, when I went to school 30 some odd years ago, there weren't many co-ops or internships. Now, my goodness, everyone wants an internship. They all want to gain experience based on what they've studied. So it's so important. And then they're struggling with managing their workloads. They're starting work and they're learning and coming along, but they're getting too much work, not enough work. How do I manage the workload? And they weren't certain sort of how to deal with that. And it could be some of the remote that's happening. But then the other one, this one sort of really bothered me. They felt that there was a skills gap. many early career starters didn't feel that they had the right skill set or the immediate skills that they needed to be successful in the seat. And that could be they're learning new software. It also could be that they are at home, same as the managing workload, and not experiencing what it's like to be with somebody who knows the software or knows the skills to teach them. Those are the top ones: mentorship, onboarding, internships, workloads, and then the skills gap. I got to tell you, years ago, I did not hear of the skills gap popping up like I do now. That's a fairly new one.
Mm. So remind us, what are the early career professionals, these entry level employees bringing to the table?
So this is probably one of the biggest things we talk to companies about. When you hire an early career starter, a new grad, they come with phenomenal computer skills. No one's got better Excel, Access, Word than a new grad.
Yes.
They know how to use a computer and they know how to use Microsoft Office so well. They can upgrade and actually train some of your existing staff on how to use Excel fuller. It's also nice to get, when you do hire a really strong early career starter, enthusiasm. You get a bit of a breath of fresh air, maybe some fresh skills and a new perspective. But then at the same time, it can also be challenging as you're bringing one new person into a team of 10. To make sure, do they gel? Is the fit there? So it can also be challenging at the same time, but you usually bring in some fresh talent, but phenomenal computer skills.
Mm.
Wow.
Honestly, I think it's so funny how back in the day you'd put Word, Excel in your resume, and you're like, I'm proud of this. Look at it. Look at these skills that I have. And now it's like they just look over it like, you should know this. Okay, this is not impressive.
Well, that's a good point. You think so 30 years ago, you would have mentioned Word Perfect. And now we mentioned Word, but now we're mentioning things like mail merges. We talked about Excel, VLOOKUPs, macros, HLOOKUPs. So now we're talking more about the actual functions the software does to demonstrate that you actually know how to use it. Every resume I see says Word, Excel, PowerPoint. But when you start getting into the functions, that's where you really know someone knows what they're talking about. I got to tell you, it's majority of the early career starters that I meet all have really, really strong computer skills, very strong.
Mm.
When you're out there and you're struggling to find an opportunity, and here's a lot that there's no jobs for new grads, and so that is a challenge we're seeing this year. We saw it also last year, but I can also tell you when you see a job posting, many of them will list must have, maybe it's 4 or 5 or 6 things. I would tell you if you have half of them or maybe a third of what they're looking for, apply. There's no reason not to apply for an opportunity when you see a post and it interests you. We tell candidates to use a GROW model, so GROW. We tell them to gain some real world experience. That could be from an internship, apprenticeship, anything project-based, so it still could be at school. And then you want to reach out to mentors. So for the R, reach out to mentors. So don't be afraid to ask a professor, alumni, to even be friends, parents. And then the O, here's the big one. Own your interpersonal skills. So this is where majority of people get the offer or lose the offer. Yep. It's not usually on computer skills, not usually, because what you bring to the table is yourself and your personality. Everyone's going to have the same sort of skill level, but you're going to bring your personality. So own your interpersonal skills. Make sure you're strong on teamwork, adaptability, communication skills. You know, I had a teacher tell me 30 years ago, the number one skill you have is the ability to be retrained. And I think in the last 30 years, oh my goodness, I've been retrained so many times. We talked about retraining on whenever I've been on with you so many times. So really talk about your ability to be retrained and your lifelong learning journey. And the W, it's just work. Take whatever comes along, whether it be a contract role, short role, could be volunteering with a charity, could be volunteering in a group like yours. Get anything that you can get just to put to practice what you've learned, and then you get a reference out of it. So grow, gain some real world experience, mentorship, own your personal skills, and get whatever comes along for work. That will all line you up to be a great success.
When you talk about that personality, Michael, that person coming in there, how much is on, again, you sit there and say, I don't want to say too much. Don't want to talk myself out of the job that I've landed on. I don't want to come off as a know-it-all, but I want to come off as confident and someone willing to be retrained, willing to learn stuff. It's really difficult because you do need that mentorship. You do need that person, but you can only do so much about the people hiring you, that manager, what they see, what they're looking for, what they tolerate on some of that personal level that you can't beat yourself up for either. And at a young age, that's really a temptation to say, what did I do wrong? Why didn't they like me?
So first thing I tell you is don't overthink it. Any opportunity that you have when you're going to school or just starting your career, that you have a chance to present in front of a crowd or audience, take it. That will help with the confidence and help sort of with public speaking. But when you're going for an interview, start thinking about, well, what do I want to say? What are my strengths? Know where you're trying to improve. I hate saying weaknesses, but know your opportunity for improvement. And then be able to get to the point really quickly. Listen carefully, but many people get ahead of themselves. They're asked a question, they answer it, and they're already thinking 3 answers ahead. They haven't asked the next question. So slow down, listen to the question, make sure you answer the question being asked, give examples when possible, but don't ramble on. Get to the point. Sometimes you're going to also be asked some difficult questions you don't know the answer for. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, that's something that I'm not that familiar with, but I'm open to learn, and here's what I do know about it. But if it is something new, feel free to share it. You don't know everything. Hiring managers don't expect you to know everything, but they want someone who's keen, eager, and wants to tackle the job. That's what they're going to hire.
Okay. Right. Is there anything that points to how come lack of internship experience? What's happening here? And again, Michael, we say this knowing we came out of this. We started these segments during the pandemic, really, and we've come out of here, talked a lot about it. But should we get away from pointing, oh, it's due to the pandemic? What are some of the things that people say is their difficulty in finding that pre-work you're talking about, that pre-volunteership? Anything?
So I separate things like volunteering from an internship. Majority of you think of the college university, most of those internships are paid. Now, there will be some, and you guys are in the media space known to be a lot of volunteers. So, but in the professional space, most of it is paid.
Yeah. And I think they've got away from a lot of that now, right? Because people were being taken advantage of.
For sure. For sure. So most of them are paid. But I can tell you, so start with volunteering at a charity. There's lots of great charities out there, whether it be something you volunteer 1 day a week, maybe it's for a couple of weeks of the year or the summer, start there. Then when it comes time for the internship, now let's say we're back to normal. Many companies now are back on their internship plans and building their human capital plans for the year. Internships are back on the table. I have 2 interns this summer working for me, something I didn't have in the previous years, but now I do. So we are back in the internship game. At the same time, there's nothing wrong with calling many organizations and asking about co-op programs, internships, or summer contract work. Don't get hung up on the title. I've had many people call me and ask me if I was hiring for an intern right when I wasn't. But I said, I don't have an internship, but I do have some contract work. Oh, no, I want an internship. Well, they really are the same thing. The big word here is some work. They're all different words for work. So take whatever comes along. That's not, take what you can get. But if you have to start at a volunteer, try to do it at a nice charity and then move from there. There are some great charities out there that definitely need some help.
Fascinating. Okay, if we move along here, let's talk about, because I mean, those are great. What would you start saying for these things that you've isolated? I mean, you've already told us a lot of how people should really thrive on some of this with these new graduates going out of there, being a little nervous about the stuff. What do you feel the professionals are getting, grabbing these fresh out of college university students?
So companies are getting some fantastic talent. So it's, you know what, when I start talking to hiring companies, they're all looking for a really sharp, smart, keen, eager, someone who wants to actually tackle the world. And then when I talk to candidates, they're all looking for an opportunity to learn. The number one thing I hear from job seekers is they want to learn and they want to progress. So companies want keen, eager, hardworking, smart talent. Job seekers want someplace that they get mentored, they want to learn, and they want to progress. Number one thing is they want to learn. We're back to that whole mentorship again. Something that I got to tell you, I think 30 years ago, I didn't I'd never really heard that word or talked about it. Number one word I hear now, mentorship. Mentorship,
Yeah.
mentorship, mentorship.
Yeah. What's more important? Mentorship within the company when someone's coming through the door, or in your mind, and I know all of them are valuable, so I don't want to suggest that one is less than the other, but I know of people who have gone into some of the mentorship programs because they want to move elsewhere, maybe from their current job into some other place. So there's mentorship programs to work with people at their current job because people know, I'm putting this into a resume, or I'm wanting to move. This is some of the things, or I just, when it's right, when it's time, whether it's here or somewhere else, want to move up. Which way do you think is, for companies being selfish, is it as that person comes into the door, getting them somebody they can buddy up with, or do they look for those people who, you belong to the so-and-so mentorship program? Nice.
So I would say it starts with you want to get the person accustomed and get them set for immediate success. I always tell people when you're going for an interview, ask the person interviewing you, how do you measure success in the first 30, 60, 90, 6 months? Because then you know what you have to deliver. And so as a company, you want to make sure that whoever you're hiring, first of all, feels welcome and feels settled right away. They have traction with their team out of the gate, and then they can start adding value almost immediately. So focus on sort of getting the person settled on the immediate value. And the mentor may change. You may have a mentor or someone who's had mentorship that is really good on the first 6 months. Get them in the door, get them settled, get the training going, getting them all set up, knowing the people, and then talk about what you're going to deliver and the why and what we're doing, the importance of what we do. And then you may have a person who sort of takes over and goes, okay, now let's talk about sort of where you're going with your career. And that could be somebody now who's more focused on, so let's talk about what else you want to do. You may have multiple mentors. You may have a mentor that helps you post-school, pre-employment. Then the mentor may take over and be onboarding, and you may still have an outside mentor. You can have 2 or 3 mentors. But as a company, focus on getting a new hire really settled and adding value right away. The sooner a person can add value to the organization, the sooner that they'll feel they're contributing and that they'll start feeling some self-worth from what they're doing. The why is really important. New hires want to know, especially new grads and early career starters, they want to know, like, what's the importance of what I'm doing? Am I making a difference in society? That's really important. I didn't have that 30 years ago. I do now.
I love
Awesome.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. And you bring up a really good point in terms of for mentorships, like it honestly doesn't matter what you get into, but always be open about what you want to do in the future, regardless of where you're at, because it could open up so many doors for you regardless.
Yeah.
That's that career conversation that so many managers don't want to have. Many managers avoid that conversation because they're afraid of losing their person that they hired, afraid of losing the person that they've trained. But I tell them, have the conversation. Maybe they have nothing to promote them into. That's a great time to have it. Talk about what could come along. If you don't have it with your people, they'll have it somewhere else. Now, somewhere else is a job interview at a different company. So have that conversation with your people when they start. Paint the picture of what's possible and share your journey. They'll love it.
So, Michael, tell me, for those staff members out there who may be a little older, who have maybe always kind of looked with a jaundiced eye to those young people coming on board and the company bringing them in, what would you say to them the plus sides are bringing these younger, fresh out of school people? We always talk about, hey, a new fresh look, some of those kinds of things. But there are some of the other things that I think so many people, whether they feel threatened by or, oh my God, they're going to saddle me with one of these newbies.
So I'd say, first of all, I understand what your concern is, but I would tell you, talk to your group leader about, okay, so we're going to teach these early career starters a couple of new things. Why don't we ask them to, at the end of 3 weeks or a month, to show us a couple ways in some software, either Word or Excel, on some tricks, ways to improve. Is there a better way to do something? Maybe you don't have to adopt it, but have a teach back. Have them talk about something that they're good at, and it usually be software, but talk about what they can teach the rest of the group. Also, have them share their onboarding experience. I bet you'd find that many of these early career starters have appreciated the fact that someone who's been in the seat, let's say been in the seat for 20, 30 years, how much they learned from a person who's been around and just have that shared in the group. It's always nice when someone talks about how great you were and how much you helped them. So a couple things. Teach backs on some software, but share their onboarding experience and what they enjoyed about it the most. I'm sure you'll have some names mentioned of what went really, really well.
Nice. Michael, great encouragement for businesses out there, but mostly who we're speaking to today, those people getting ready to break out into that workforce from school. Thank you, pal.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Nazreen.
Thank you.
We discussed the latest Robert Half research with Michael French once a month right here on Kelly and Company. So, Niz, coming out of school, any of that ring home? Any of that make you feel so anxietyful? You did apprenticeship and summer student work. The value, what would you place on that?
Honestly, I was so grateful to have the opportunity at AMI, and I know this is going to sound so cheesy, but I was so grateful for this opportunity because I know so many graduates who struggled for many years just to find a job, even if it's not in their field. But there's no the job market has always been so hard. It's always been such a bad conversation because I feel like a lot of people are struggling, and people are not just focused on what they studied. It's any job out there. Nowadays, you'll look through jobs and they'll say, okay, 10 years of experience for a minimum wage job. Like it makes zero sense. But to have that internship when I left school, as soon as I left school, to have that opportunity was amazing. I got mentors from that internship, amazing people to look up to and to teach me things that I've never seen before. So I really grew up so much from just that internship that I got to experience. So amazing.
So I was a kid that hassled all the broadcast entities in London, went to all the stations, looked at everything. I grew up in being a teenager doing my research, and I kind of went away from broadcasting, the idea, because I thought, would I get that support being blind and coming into the industry? Went to college, and the college had a bunch of broadcast people through the city that were on a panel that kind of talked to us, would come in, would give advisement, would help oversee people getting these placements through time. I knew a lot of them, even before I was in college, and it was always really fun. But it didn't make it easier for me to get one of those placements. Some of the others did. I didn't. We were always told through school, you're going to get a job somewhere else. So you London kids, don't get it in your head, you're going to be here. So I learned that right away. And it took me a while before I was able to land something. I talked to every program director at radio stations all over Southwestern Ontario, the Toronto area. Again, I was careful there, knowing, but no Toronto station's going to give some fresh out of school kid something unless they're amazingly gifted. Even Hamilton would be, and I was, as you say, prepared to go in there, be paid money, and it would, being blind and my commuting, everything I'd have to do, it would eat up all the money. There was just there was going to be no making money. It was what I hoped to have for the resume. And the broadcast industry, very different at that time, different now. It's just kind of its own crazy little entity that way for people getting into the industry when we're talking about all these others. It's really fascinating. But the key all along for me anyway, has been that mentorship piece for so many different things. And I think it's so important, even just down to knowing, hey, when you go in there, don't do this, don't do that, take that stupid fedora off, please. And don't wear that into the interview. So I've always found that such a piece, but also not being worried about the person coming in, being onboarded, like, oh, they're here to take my job. I know people think that a lot of time, and it makes you kind of, feel paranoid, but you start trying to justify it instead of realizing, what can I get from these people? And I felt that when I started. I felt like with my colleagues, I could help them out. And I've certainly felt that the other way around with the people I work with now. What am I learning from them? So it's wonderful. Remember to check out our podcast from your podcast platform of choice. Give us a rating and review if you would. While you're at it, check out the Kelly and Company YouTube page. Subscribe to it. We'd appreciate that. Some great content going up there, from shows to vanity cards, all sorts of great stuff on our podcast, on our YouTube page and via the Kelly and Company podcast.
So every year, millions of Canadians take to the waterways for recreational enjoyment. And with this comes along all kinds of safety considerations and awareness for boaters. The Toronto Police Marine Unit, alongside the Canadian Safe Boating Council, kicked off Safe Boating Awareness Week from Saturday, May 17th till this Friday, May 23rd, 2025. As summer approaches, the Canadian Safe Boating Council sets sail with its annual Safe Boating Awareness Week, advocating for safe and responsible boating practices across Canada. To steer boaters towards safety, the CSBC, alongside its partners, underscores 5 pivotal boating safety messages. And here to break it down for those messages for us is Deputy Unit Leader Ryan Lippert. Hi, how's it going?
Hi, good morning. Yes, good.
Good morning. So, what are the 5 safety messages you're putting out to the public?
Sure. So, fundamentally, we're talking about Safe Boating Week, but ultimately, safety doesn't end with just a single week. This is something that we need to be cognizant of all the time that we are on the water. And certainly, we want to take into account a number of factors. The first is that we're wearing the gear. Proper PFD, for example, is essential to safety on the water. One that is approved by Fisheries and Oceans, Transport Canada, or the Canadian Coast Guard, and is properly fitted for your size and body type. Next would be to boat sober. Alcohol, drugs, and boating do not mix. We as humans, we spend most of our time on solid land. When we get out on the water, it's an entirely different environment with the motion of the boat and exposure to sun and wind and whatnot, which can amplify the effects of drugs and alcohol on the water. Certainly to be prepared, and that's yourself as a skipper being prepared with local knowledge of the waterways that you're planning to traverse across, knowledge of the weather conditions currently and in the future, and being up to date with all the current safety or boating regulations and whatnot, and also making sure that your vessel is prepared and has all the mandatory safety equipment and more. Additionally, on that same line is to take a boating course. Most of us will take some kind of lessons before learning how to drive a car. A boat is really no different. There are a lot of skills to learn and develop when boating. And finally, it would be to have some cold water awareness. Every body of water that we have in Canada is considered a cold water body, and cold water shock and subsequent drowning is a leading cause of death there.
Mm. And what else is important now more than ever to consider with boating safety?
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly following the period of the worst of the COVID years, there were a number of families that went out and purchased boats in an attempt to have some outdoor space to themselves with their families. And unfortunately, in many of those cases, people rushed into to buying these boats. Often they were not really seaworthy, and in most cases, these folks did not take any kind of supplementary courses to learn how to safely operate their vessels, and so on. So the message here really is preparedness. Take a course, learn how to operate the vessel that you're trying to operate, whether that's a stand-up paddleboard or powerboat or sailboat. These things all have specific instructions and skills that go along with them.
I just
Anything
love how
particular?
yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Nis.
I was saying I just love how there's so many courses out there available now versus
Yeah. Certainly,
Love
there
that.
are. There's no shortage of courses available. I know canboat.ca. They have a huge selection of courses available for
Mhm.
both new and novice boaters, as well as those looking to expand their horizons.
Wow. I'm curious because we're talking that, and I'm looking at the potential violations that people may get into. What would you say to the people who tend to be the city slicker, wanting to, hey, I want to have some fun in a boat and get out there? What are some of the things you guys want to share with them and tell them to really be aware of? I mean, everything on that list to me is good for everyone. You know, the cold water, make sure you've had it. But for that person who really doesn't see the water a lot, gets out maybe a couple of times a year.
Yeah. So, and it, you know, the conditions may vary depending on where you are in the province or in the country. You know, where I am here on Lake Ontario, it's a very large body of water. In many ways, it behaves more like an inland sea than a lake. Conditions can change very rapidly. The water itself is very cold. The water depth at shorelines can drop off very quickly. Even families that are enjoying some of the beach areas, you know, to be careful as you're wading in with your children. And speaking of
Mhm.
children, you know, always have them within arm's reach. Even if you're just splashing around at the edge of a beach, PFD is still certainly your best bet. There are a lot of folks that never learned to swim. It was never part of their schooling or their upbringing, and you know, consequently, they may not have an understanding of exactly how difficult it can be in cold water situations. So if there's, you know, any doubt at all as to your swimming ability, don a PFD. Even if you are the best swimmer in the world, when you're immersed in a cold water lake like we have here in Canada, your ability is diminished quite quickly.
Different story. How about your preserver, your life jacket, whatever you want to call it? And I'm using intentionally the old terminologies because, you know, when I started doing kayaking, what the PF? What? Oh, well, one of these. We have so much to them nowadays that are for that safety. Is there any time that someone would actually have something that's the older that we'd say, no, that's not fit, or unless it's damaged, it would probably still be quite fine? What is that benefit? Obviously, buying something new, always better buying something new, but can you talk to what is a good one to have? Proper fit? Let's start there.
Sure. Yeah, indeed. You know, it's the right tool for the job. So PFDs come in a number of styles and form factors. They are really designed to be comfortably worn, to encourage the individual to wear them while they're partaking in that particular water sport, whether that's water skiing or personal watercraft, sailing, fishing, hunting. So the style of the PFD may allow for more movement or be less bulky. So choose one that is going to fit you and one that you're going to wear. Again, in Canada, we look for approvals by Fisheries and Oceans, Transport Canada, or the Canadian Coast Guard. Technically, they don't. PFD doesn't expire per se, but most manufacturers will recommend replacing them after about 10 years. And as part of your, routine inspection of the equipment on board, make sure that there are no rips and tears, abrasions, and that the buckles and closures, zippers all appear to be in good working condition. And if there's any question at all, simply discard the vest and purchase a new one.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you
Thanks for
so
doing
much, Ryan. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Super helpful.
It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of Toronto Search and Rescue Marine, proud partner and member of the Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary.
Awesome. Safe Boating Awareness Week is promoted by the CSBC. For additional information on boating safety, visit betterboater.ca.
Wow, that was amazing. Thanks to Ryan. Thanks to Colleen for getting this thing put together for us. And Nazreen, thanks to you for being with me today on the show.
Thank you.
Folk, we'll step aside and we'll be back tomorrow. The Luminato Festival is back this June and offering many inclusive performances in theater, music, and dance, as well as unique audio-described tours around Toronto. Christine Malik will be here to lead the show, and she has all sorts of details. So Fedora's off to you. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.